the neat thing is, I don't think God leaves things unfinished that he wants to finish.
That's true. Even when I had the same moment too with like the things I've picked up, I literally thought when I left LA, I'm like, well, that all was of the past. I guess I need to get a job, settle down,
quit dreaming,
and live the most boring, mundane, societal expectant life.
Speaking of which, Anna Gray Smith, amazing woman that you are. Hello.
Hello, Renee Leonard Kennedy, fellow amazing woman that you are.
I'm a FA. Yay. I'm a FAM.
What is that? Future farmers
fellow, amazing. No,
fall.
I'm a fall.
I'm a fall.
Fall.
Hashtag fall.
Not a fellow, amazing woman.
Fall. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
How are you? You know, we did do a womanly thing today. We did almost like what was akin to, remember in the movies when the two friends go off and they always, you know, whatever, she's down in her dumps or whatever. And then all of a sudden they go dress shopping and they try on different clothes. And we actually did that.
We did. Yeah. We are doing a kind of crazy thing. But you've done it a bunch. You're the pro at this.
No, I'm not. I just know the right
ballroom
people.
Dances and competes it like 5 times a year.
Well, no, I did this year.
But you're more experienced in the sequins, hairspray, fake eyelashes.
I am very experienced there, which is really funny because as you can see, I sit in, cross-legged and without shoes, and I live on a farm. However, I have learned that there are secrets to it. And the wonderful thing about it is this wonderful lady, woman we call Caroline, and she's a former dancer, and she had this room, and I took you to her boutique, and she all she does is you tell her size, you tell her, and she knows me now, and she goes, no, Renee, that's too skimpy for Renee, and she'll get the right kind, and she'll pull out dresses, and you saw how easy that was.
Yeah, I felt kind of bad because I thought she probably thinks I'm the most prudish millennial.
Yeah.
All the dresses are cool, but I can't. Yeah. Some of them I feel are sexier than myself, you know?
Yeah. I think you really need to feel comfortable in a ballroom or a rhythm clothes.
Even if it's edgier than what you normally wear, there's a certain level of like discomfort I'm okay with, but overall, you know.
No.
We did. We had fun though. We tried on mini
leotards
and spandex.
And we had Lily with us. And so there was a 3-way dress thing going on. There was a lot of little bling I was walking on. I had some bling injury to my foot.
Did you
I was injured by a sequin.
Oh no, a paper cut.
I need stitches. You know?
I need a stitch. What was it?
How did you hurt yourself? I stepped on a sequin.
Well, if it was from one of the like $1 million dresses. My favorite moment was seeing that adorable dress, which shall remain nameless. But in my head, I thought, all right, if it's like even a couple $100, I might just buy it and have it because I liked it. It was really,
it was
cute and
really
it fit well, and it was kind of edgy but not too much. And my favorite moment was when she's sitting in there,
the price.
And I said, "All right, how much are they asking for it?" And she said, "Well, she got it for $4,000, but she's asking for $3,000."
You're like, sure.
I'm like, to each their own, but I couldn't justify it.
Well, I love it, and that's what I love.
I don't love sequins that much. I'm sorry.
No,
Actually,
I don't.
I'm not sorry.
I don't, and I don't think either of us. We're trying. I am convinced that I want to try harder this year. I've been trying hard. I want to believe that I can actually try harder.
As in the actual dancing?
Yeah.
I do too. Yeah. That's how I feel. So much pressure. A good pressure, but
it's a good pressure. But what I really love about Caroline is
this is the dress lady.
She's one of our names, Caroline cool. Alexander at rhythmneckreynolds.com, I believe. But she, you rent something, and some people go, well, why do you rent a dress? That seems weird. But when you look at the cost of it, there's a reason these dresses cost so much. I mean, there's a lot of work, a lot of detail, a lot of bling, or even if they don't have bling, they're coming from, costume designers and all this. So to rent them, it would take me years of dancing, which who knows how long, to even buy one dress. So I get to wear all these different things And she knows what I like, and she knows what colors I like, and there we go.
Yeah, you can test your palette. You know?
I did. I pushed it today a little bit.
Yeah.
I just don't like the crayon colors on me.
I don't like the mermaid crayon colors on me either.
No.
I like black
I do. I really do like the black. It's very classic.
It is.
But what I thought was stunning is I said to her, this is how much I love Caroline. I said to her, Anna Gray's coming with us, and she'd never met you. And I said, she wants Audrey Hepburn vibe. And she really pulled some dresses.
She
that
did.
Had them.
It was cool.
Yeah.
I was kind of surprised because you never know what they're gonna,
But I thought I thought she was gonna go straight to the bling, but she didn't. She actually pulled it off in a really beautiful way.
Yeah,
so.
I'm still undecided between the two.
I know.
Time
so Anna Gray, you've been shopping dresses.
Wow, I have, and then I was binging Argentine tango dresses.
So I know that everybody's excited, but this actually does segue into what we're talking about today. It really
does completely segue, and it's because a lot of reasons. So last week, one of my we both share the same teachers, Dima and Nick, who are wonderful men.
They are
who
wonderful.
We love very dearly.
Yes.
So Nick and I were dancing, and I was struggling with I don't want to say a comment said, I don't want to be careful how I say that, but there is basically a large pressure I felt from a comment in this ballroom event I'm doing at the end of October, which, as I tell anyone who asks, like, you're doing the national competition, I say, well, it's a crazy story, which maybe a few years from now, Moralty will fully reveal. But I was dancing with Nick, and I felt just this drop in my chest. And it reminded me of the moment how you described in a separate scenario and such, just feeling this sense of, I don't say inadequacy because that wasn't it, but when you felt like rushed and pressured in a different kind of way. Yeah, from the story you shared. Yeah. I felt that same thing, but I felt suddenly in this ballroom like the most fake person because like I don't belong here. I'm like a mutt among all these people. And I start like word vomiting all my fears to Nick. And I said, Nick, I'm so thankful for this. And it means a lot. I said, I almost cried when, the whole story of this coming to fruition and being able to participate in this came about. I said, I feel like an imposter. Ballroom stuff aside, whatever levels it's for, I really just, I felt extremely small and fear. And it's not that I'm looking for some validation to feel like this advanced, puffed up person. Right. It's really not that. But I think it's this sense of knowing, not just belonging, but feeling incapable and wanting to feel capable of something.
Yeah.
But kind of how this comment was said to me kind of felt like it was almost shocked that I was doing it.
Right.
Like, wow.
You were not at a
rookie
certain,
girl.
Yeah, not a certain level or what.
Haven't danced in a bikini thong yet.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's to come when I'm 85 years old. But you mentioned a word, and I want you to give me the definition because I hear it all the time.
Sure.
The imposter syndrome. And I'm like, okay, I think I know what that means.
Yeah.
But what do you say that
essentially means? It's trying to be something you're not.
Oh.
Or thinking, but imposters. Oh, I'm an imposter. Obviously, is someone who tries to replicate somebody else. But imposter syndrome is kind of a modern, almost Urban Dictionary term for meaning that you feel like you are inadequate at being something. It can be in work, in a personality trait. So you feel like you are being kind of a copycat of sorts and that you're not the real thing.
Well, I know.
Like there's this level you have to measure up to.
And you don't fit.
And you don't fit the boxes.
And that's when we had the conversation and I left you a message and I said, I went to a family reunion and I, I love family. It's my cousins. It's people I grew up with, their children, all these, you forget how the genealogy goes. But I ran and I finally got to one of my cousins and she's wonderful. She's just so amazing. But she, and I don't think she would mind me sharing, but she'd won special awards for, just her brains and her beauty when she was in high school. She excelled at school. She was, but she was also, seriously, one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen in my life. I mean, everybody has beauty, I feel like. I love to see it. But she's like one of these Jennifer Aniston types you just want to look at because they're just like, wow, she's really a beautiful woman. And she's always been that way. And so every time I see her, I'm like, I didn't think she could get any more beautiful inside or out, but she does. And so this last time, I'm standing there listening to her talk, just loving the fact that I was with my cousin. But I'm looking at her and I'm going, she's older than I. She's that perfect. She's like, you wouldn't know. And she's lifting weights and all this stuff. So, I mean, she's knockout. And I'm thinking, and then she starts telling me some things. And I'm like, wow, this is really hard for her right now. She's going through some things. Not only that, we've walked through the deaths of our parents. We've walked through children leaving the house, and growing up, and having grandchildren. We've walked through a lot of emotional highs and lows. And I'm just looking at her going, oh my goodness. I thought if anybody would have this all together, has always, always, always been her. The funny thing about it, we laugh. People think, well, you do a podcast.
You must be making in like
book.
Millions of dollars.
Yeah,
I retired last year. You guys didn't
we're and I'm like, have you looked? Though Anna and Alexa are growing because of Sarah. But it's just, I realize it's, people see each other on Instagram or you see somebody in person and we immediately make these assumptions about their perfected life. And I don't know how this ties into the dance, but I think I do. But making assumptions about people, making the idea that everybody has it together but myself, why do we do that? It's like we character assassinate ourselves,
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's oftentimes, because didn't you mention that also, like, there were more, the podcast, obviously she mentioned, but it's funny how people can have the same viewpoint as each other and think, oh, they're like here, and I'm like here, the other is here, and,
they're at 80 they're at 98%, and I'm always running on 45.
I think we've just been conditioned as people to constantly have this state of discontentment, but also, I don't want to say inferiority, maybe. I don't know if that's quite the correct verbiage, but this constant state of needing to do more, be more, and like it's still not enough.
No.
And I know that as a child, I felt that way all the time in so many things I did. I felt like the bar was here. Right. And some of those were my own expectations. I think it can be familial expectations, cultural, societal, in different ways. But I think that it's not necessarily the same formula for everybody, but I know deep down that within myself, at least, it very much stems from unworthiness, which we've talked about on a couple podcast episodes now. It also stems from inadequacy, and it's as if I can hear voices of the past coming right back. I will feel 13 inside or 7 years old inside, or like the ugly duckling inside where I think I'm not beautiful and shiny enough for this. I'm not talented enough, capable enough, strong enough, smart enough. Yeah. I think it can also be words we've heard. I don't want to psychoanalyze it too much, but I really believe that things we've heard in the past, especially when it's people we care about or love, or even if it's not that, we dub it as this truth over ourselves, or at least I do.
Well, no, I know as a parent, sometimes in the moment, your grandmother comes out in your voice, or your mother comes out in your voice, or your father comes out. You all of a sudden you find you saying the things that were said to you in the heat of the moment. Now you understand why they said those, because you're amped up and ramped up. like, you know, basically is why aren't you like, or why don't you be this? And you're going inside, you're going, oh my goodness, I don't want to wound this child. And I just think I did, you know, because I'm trying to make them be something, or
that's it,
you know, or act like something.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
it's like expectations on them that they can't humanly fulfill.
Yeah. I need you to act like this. How many times have we heard that growing up, or have I said it as a parent? You need to act like this. We're going
Put on
in
your
here.
best behavior.
Yes. And then like this, the
We
finger
love you,
is
parents.
being poked into the shoulder, like
Yeah.
my mother's famous move.
Oh my gosh.
And-
or being pinched. Mom would pinch me as a kid.
Oh
It
no, I didn't
hurt.
get pinched. Well, I wouldn't want to be pinched by your mama. She pinches
in
me
church when I was
verbally.
squirmy and wanted to talk.
Oh really? She pinched you. That's how it worked. I
Maybe
wonder
like
how many kids are pinched on average in church.
Oh my gosh. Right?
You're either pinched or poked.
You're pinched
you know?
or poked.
I mean, that's just the way it is. And so the thing is, and that kind of spawns from where we had to really work on. I know your mother and my other group of friends, we worked very hard on not thinking that our kids are a reflection on us, and like not trying to make them be something.
Yeah.
Because we wanted to have that ego stroke, right? So, but in this case, we're living through it as women. You know, again, I'm at this place where I'm 62, and I'm thinking, I thought I'd be over this by now. No, it's still here.
No, I feel that.
You know,
I'm 28 years old.
Yeah, and it's just amazing to me. So, the idea of someone not measuring up, when I look at them and they seem like they have it all together, you realize you're in the same boat.
Yeah.
But we're all walking. I mean, how many of us are walking around? How many of us are actually feeling confident about that?
I feel that. And, you know, I think we look at our version of success too. And I've realized that in my head, I've created this ideation of what success is. And maybe that's not the same for everybody. And when other people seem to have that, I will think that I've somehow missed the memo, that I haven't done enough, tried hard enough. And I think it's also the idea that once you get the quote unquote success, suddenly you, like, that is almost the pedestal to making it in life. And that's when you'll finally feel content and happy. And it's looking for that, I think, to ultimately satisfy. And when we see that in other people, it almost pierces our weak spot, as I like to call it. Because I used to think that when people found my weak spot, it was by harsh words, or them seeing like, oh, this is what, you know, she's insecure about. This is how she feels vulnerable. Sometimes it's by people who are secure and have the things we want. Almost like jealousy of sorts. And I've always wondered how much that ties into it.
Or envy.
Yeah.
Because I didn't feel
And
envious.
really drawing and really magnifying these feelings of unworthiness.
It's comparison.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was the word you brought up. Because I realized with my cousin, I wasn't envy. I was just happy for her. And then she starts telling me, you know, some things she's going through. And I was talking to her. I was like, you need to let yourself grieve this moment. I mean, it wasn't a death, but it was the loss of something. And I said, you know, you're going through something. It's funny. She, who I thought had everything going for her, needed permission to be sad about having lost something, you know. And it wasn't a person. It was a situation. And I'm like, since when do we need the permission to do that? You know, like it doesn't make sense.
Well, I think it also are those personality types, not saying your cousin has that personality type, but it almost can be a disservice to other people, because when we see them through this lens of perfection, we don't assume they could be going through hardship. I think she was Miss America at one point. Chesley Christ, who jumped from a building and committed suicide. She had high functioning depression. No one had any idea. She was a lawyer, athlete, model, businesswoman.
Right. Did she have a family and kids?
Yeah, no, not married, no kids, but on the outside seemed to have the whole package, and
Right.
people didn't really know to check in because, she was so high functioning and able
Right.
to maneuver around those emotions.
Did she leave a letter and let people know?
No, it was really sudden. I think she posted something on her Instagram that people thought was a little eerie that said just, I love you all. And then she jumped to
Okay.
her.
So that's
That's a really extreme example, but think about it and how hard that must be. It almost makes me cringe when people see others, whether it's Instagram in real life, and they say, oh, they're so perfect. Like the fawning and it's not even so much inside myself that I'm wishing, oh, I could be that. But in knowing, I know these people actually are, and they've gone through
It's hard times.
Yeah, they're not just a, pretty picture shrine, or just when people look at others' success in life.
Right.
I think it's easy to undermine that they've probably walked some dark valleys we wouldn't see at first glance. So people naturally aren't going to really ever be vulnerable enough with them or really communicate with them in such a way that allows the openness for that kind of stuff to be shared.
Do you think, I just thought about this and I was going back to your example of the young woman who,
Oh, Chesley?
yeah, Chesley, who so tragically ended her life. And you said no one knew. Do you think that I know we objectify and, with image and all that on social media or whatever. But she had family or she had friends. She had business associates. Had they objectified her too and just thought, like, no one knew about her high functioning depression? Someone had to know.
I think her mom knew because she had been don't quote me on this, fact check, but from what I read, I believe she was on medication for managing depression. And I think some of her really close family knew about it. I don't know about others. But again, I mean, you look at her Instagram and people who just like fawn, and even how they describe her, it's almost, I think it can put this insane pressure on people that they can't humanly carry, where they almost can't give themselves permission to experience lows because people won't necessarily believe it. Right. And I know that some people don't genuinely believe it when people who are high functioning are just going through a low in life.
You're right. Because what people do, they
Spill
say,
the tea.
well, no. I mean, you'll see it on Twitter or something like, you're crying over, you have the right to cry over this. Well, yes, you do. Mm-hmm. Just because you're
constantly rationalizing.
Yeah, I mean, just
awful.
because you're pulling in X amount of dollars per movie or whatever, whatever it is now, I guess it would be YouTube shows or influencer, doesn't mean that you're not sad. You're not all these other things, mad, angry, lonely, stressed, tired.
Yes. And it's crazy. And okay, it's gonna be like kind of personal example. So a lot of people think I'm just like this bubbly, like happy-go-lucky person. But a couple years ago, and you very much knew like the circumstances, the multiple that were involved, the legal situation with the others. And there was one particular night I will never forget in my entire life. Everyone thought I was totally fine. And actually, when I finally started telling people, just to select people I trusted, like what was going on,
Right.
Obviously you knew everything. So you were one of the like few people who understood and checked in and such. But there were so many people who I would talk to and they had no clue, because I remember I could power myself on and off so easily. I was literally on antidepressants, and there was one incident in particular, not last year, but 2 years ago. And I remember I had just gotten my hair cut a few hours before, had on makeup, had gone to the bar room, and then there was an accident that had happened, which I'm keeping just kind of private for confidentiality's sake right now. But I remember after like processing it, thinking back, I was like, I literally got my hair cut. And like, to look at this situation, you wouldn't think, she has this bazillion things going on. Because I had some angst from people who were, I think, frustrated that I wasn't meeting up as much, reaching out as much. And I'm like, I have in my head, and I wrote a blog post on this on my old blog called Behind Her Young Skin. And I'm not saying this to sound like, I'm a tragic snowflake, but to say like, I remember there were a couple people, not tons, but who just, I was getting some passive aggressive comments, and I felt really frustrated because I felt extremely rationalized even in what I was dealing with and the things out of my control. But I didn't feel like if I even disclosed to certain people, they would believe me because I was, I think, 26 at that time. And most people thought, oh, you just have this free-spirited life. You travel. You've got your photo business. You've got all this stuff going for you. You're young. And I'm like, you don't understand the piles of medical bills on my dresser. The glass after glass of alcohol I'm consuming at 2 p.m. because I can't think straight.
The lawyer
phone calls that are just getting worse and worse.
No, it was epic.
Yeah.
It was very epic.
Yep.
Yeah.
So all that to say, I'm not comparing it to something like Chesley Chris suicide and saying, oh yes, I'm right there with her. But also I do very much identify with a lot of young people or just people in general who you feel like you are seen a certain way or through a lens of things you're doing, things you're accomplishing, but nothing. But have you felt that way though too?
Well, yeah, but I want to go back to something you said because I realize even by using a handy name label like snowflake,
right?
We even, not that every, I didn't get that Louis Vuitton I wanted today. Okay, that could, that could be labeled maybe snowflake. I don't know. But by using the name snowflake on everything, someone, just because they're younger, devaluing them just because they're younger and they have a certain, I'm not sure about this definition of snowflakes because I don't think snowflake includes what the problem is.
Right.
I think it just
so true.
it just mentions complaining. That's my view of it. So like by even calling people snowflakes, we're basically saying you don't have the right to complain about blank.
Right.
And
right.
that's not right.
When the people, when I think back to, and I don't want to make this all about, oh, here's the stuff I went through a few years ago, but I very much felt unseen. I think that's what we were talking about earlier.
Yes, most
I felt
definitely.
so unseen. And when I think back, there were actually sometimes I confided in others and constantly it was even the legal stuff rationalized like, oh, it can't get that bad. It's not going to get that bad. Just don't worry about it. And it kept getting worse and worse and reaching the levels where I'm like coming out of my skin. And
it did.
It did.
Ramped
and
up
the thing is, I would try
time.
to sometimes write. And this is the problem too, and why I think people feel they have to stuff things down. And this isn't like the ultimate topic we're talking about today, but just on that note, when you start to become vulnerable in certain ways, then it can often be seen as, oh, well, they're like exaggerating this. They're just trying to seek like pity or attention. And, I think that a lot of the time people are trying to reach out and connect, not just for help, but to feel seen.
Right.
And I know that for myself, when others would connect with me when I was sharing my vulnerability, that meant so much. Like hearing what they had walked through. Yeah. Obviously, I was very close in arms, like with you at that time, and just like a few others who did genuinely understand. But I think the rationalization can be really difficult for people, and even opening up and becoming honest. And I say that to loop back around to your thoughts and what you were, how you're describing, and just the lens of perfection we can see people through, or see, people can see us through. And as a successful businesswoman, do you ever feel that way, or have you felt that way? Because you've gone through
really. We've already gone not feeling, welcome at the table, and the insecurities of that. I feel barely capable of most things I do, and I'm just my foot. Like I'm here because I bring an idea, yay, and then I have to execute it not so well. It's even like ballroom dancing. I'm happy to be there, but there's a point, that they're back to the basic step on me. And I was told, Renee, you need to get these very basic things. And I realize, I feel like that constantly having to go back to the basic step.
I feel that way too.
But it's not bad. That's not the bad part. But I told you about that time we it must be a dress day, but I had wanted this dress when I was 13 years old, and my mom, we were shopping for something, and we didn't have hardly any money. I don't even know what we were doing in a clothes store, because I think it was my first clothes store. Because we just didn't have money. My mom would go out and buy what she could. So for some reason I see this, it's the 70s, and this granny dress, and I really wanted it. It was patchwork and all that. And it went all the way down to mid-thigh, and this was before the middies were popular. And it would have looked, honking wild with a pair of Doc Martens or something like that.
Yeah.
But at this point, I had a pair of white boots. I don't even know where my mother got those. I'm sure somehow she got consignment or something. Who knows? So I really wanted it. And back then, it was even expensive. And I told you, and we're talking the 70s, it was $113.
Oh.
So that was an expensive little dress. And I knew Mom and Dad didn't have the money, but I really, really wanted it. And I was doing everything in my head to figure it out. But I the reason I ask you is my Holy Work journaling had asked me, did you ever, what about your wants and desires? Did you ever have a desire that wasn't met? Or I know they talk about later, did you have desires that God met? That was today's. But so I was thinking about the desires I didn't have met, and that popped up in my head. And that was 50 years ago. And I still remember that. I just remember not getting that dress and understanding completely because it was too expensive. But I remember also telling you on the memo is I tried to examine why I wanted that dress. And here's this gawky 13-year-old, and there's nothing to be said about being 13.
No, 13's the worst.
It's like everything hits. But I felt beautiful and I felt seen. So the deal is I think there was something being answered there. I wanted that dress so badly that I felt like it was going to answer a desire of my heart.
Ooh, I feel that, yeah.
And like if I could just dance better, or and that's not even on my list, but if I could, get to this point in writing, or get to this point in knowing what I'm talking about in business, or get to this will be, I will be that person. I will be my relative that I love so much, but still.
You feel like do you feel like, I can finally touch the bar.
I can finally touch the bar.
Yeah.
And the bar keeps raising.
Yep. I feel that.
So I it's funny. This really woke me up, Anna Gray, when my cousin said, and just as questions. So to me, it's very beautiful how God's working on issues in our lives, and He brings out. Because you responded. You were like, "Oh my goodness, I was just talking about this." How He brings things to light, in so many beautiful ways. And if we didn't believe in God, we would just say, "Well, that's coincidence," but it's not. Because all of a sudden I run into my cousin. I have these questions from Holy Journal. I remember this thing. You're thinking the same thing, and it's interesting to see that God is wanting to tell us things in this moment on how we feel about people, how we feel about ourselves.
Ooh, it's almost like they reflect what we feel about ourselves.
Yes, and I'm like
so
trying
good.
to figure out what is that. Is He trying to say, "Oh, Renee, everybody else is struggling"? I don't think it's just that.
Mm-hmm. Don't feel bad. You're not alone. Yeah.
And I don't think He's. I with this young woman, I don't know what was going on in her last moments, but she was desperate enough. Mm-hmm. She was desperate enough to say, "I want this over."
Yep.
So
she was young too, but continue. Yeah.
How young?
Like 20s. Yeah.
So how do we feel about that? I mean, I think this kind of triggers into getting off the hamster wheel of comparison and getting into our heart's desires that, but being in line with God's, obviously. Do we feel like our heart's desires are being answered? I don't know where the center of this is. So maybe that's what we need to identify.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's such a process too. I don't necessarily think there's one given answer magic formula. I don't have it because it's still a process for me.
Right.
I do know that pressing into things and refining the things that I do feel God has put his joys in my heart and really just owning that rather than looking to someone else's work, especially artistically, that can be, that's the hardest for me to compare myself in. Even more than, you know, running, anything sports related, I can kind of take with a grain of salt and it doesn't bother me. But when someone is like my age, very similar to me, good at the exact same things, but they actually are a little bit better at all of them. Oh my gosh, it makes me feel so freakishly incapable and inadequate. And that's because, again, like I think I'm also giving them too much power. And I think we all do that, you know, as they're
it's the comparison.
Demigod status and have reached the pedestal of achievement.
But it's the comparison thing.
Yeah, it is, you know, and I think realizing that life looks different on everybody. We think that we have to look the same, have the same story, the same linear process, and we're all very complicated, beautifully effed up works in progress.
But you know what I realized? I was just thinking, by making these assumptions about ourselves and making these assumptions about other people, they really do choke what God may be doing in us, because we're so wrapped up in, you know, oh, I don't measure up. You live that way.
And it holds you back from even trying things because you're like, I'm going to come across as a fool. I'm not as good as them. I can't do that. Therefore, premise.
I can't do that. I mean, we've been told that. We said it. I can't do that. Well, no, nobody can do anything the first time. I mean, you try, you know. I mean, dancing is a process. We thought we'd all look like major ballroom stars. But, I mean, that never happened when I was playing tennis. You know, anything I've ever wanted in life, you start it somewhere and you continue refining it the rest of your life.
And I think it's honestly finding a strange peace and okayness with averageness in the process and understanding, I think, just not even just with hobbies and things we do, but just, you know, in life in general, and not setting such high unattainable expectations and finding solace in the refining process, whether it's a personality trait we're working on, you know, whether it's, I don't know, I think you could insert anything that blank, but
it's a growth thing.
Yeah.
But I do see how when we get in that, and you did mention jealousy, envy, whatever it is, we get in that mode, we choke in these things. But I also, I think about it. You're like, you said something about trying something new. You went off and we can't share that yet, but you're doing some interesting, you're branching out in different ways.
Which actually I will insert, those aren't new. It's just 10 years later and it feels new. But
nevertheless, you've picked up something from the past that you had left off.
Yep.
And, but by doing it, it has just brought you incredible joy and opportunities in wild ways you never thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and so I was just thinking how the envy comparison can really rack and wreck us as women.
Well, it's funny that you even say that, and then how I keep these things so like, or what I've been just working on like so secretive, because actually comparison is the biggest root for me, and also imposter syndrome.
Oh,
because even though I'm like, actually, the people I would compare myself to, I don't think I'm the greatest at it. No, but I'm like, I did have a history with this, and I actually do have knowledge of it. So I should feel like I can easily just set myself at the table. But I don't. I really don't, though. And
no, you were wonderful.
I see it in such a different way. I don't think either, you know, I have like such this vast, you know, amount of knowledge, or I'm just as good as somebody else. Because it's like this, it's very much refining something left off from like 8 years ago, 9 years ago. But literally is that, like, it's it is absolutely feeling still fake. And the whole idea of imposter syndrome. But expand on what you were just saying.
Well,
That was good.
I was thinking because, I stopped writing for 26 years. And because I was just thinking, I've been doing it. That's one of my first memories, was opening up a little black and white speckled composition book and writing. So I've always written. I've always loved words. I've always loved reading words. And writing them. And so I left it off, and then I picked it up, and I felt like this newbie. But I went, I'm just going to write a novel. So in 2018, I'd been waiting for years. I said, Lord, give me an idea. Because I went from I don't even know if I had ideas back in the day, but I would write. But I wasn't a Christian. And then when I became a Christian, I kept saying, Lord, where are my story ideas? Where's some ideas? And I was totally dry of that. Just like, I was just totally devoid of it. And I kept saying, Lord, when am I going to get an idea? And I didn't realize it, but I was plowing into the Old Testament, which is story after story after story after story, and learning about him and learning his character. And then in the New Testament and rereading it, the Bible again. And so I kept thinking, well, I guess writing is over. I guess it's just done.
You had that moment too?
I did. I was totally over. It was totally over. Thank you. Okay, it's somebody we know. But so I just thought, okay, it's over. It's over. And it was years. And then all of a sudden, one day I wake up and I was like, I think I have an idea.
26 years later?
Yes.
Wow.
Well, more than 26 years later. And so I sit down and I all of a sudden see the way this thing should be mapped out. And so Lisa was in cheerleading, and I took my handy dandy computer up, and I would set up in the loft and just write my story. And I was just thrilled.
Was this the current novel
or
the one that's been published?
No, it's
which is crazy to say that now, looking back, published.
But no, this is the one. So cool. And so I wrote it, started it in 2018, finished in 2019, and it was the first draft. I never did anything with it. And I just thought, and I had pitched it to a couple of people, and it was like, well, you need to be more, because it deals with some heavy topics, and so I just thought, this will never work. And then I picked it up, and I have slowly in the end of 2023, 24, been rewriting it. And then my publisher says, where's your fiction? And I'm like, okay, now I'm in a deadline, which but I picked it up and I redid it, and it was so wild. So you can actually leave things for years
and still feel new.
And
yeah, I feel that.
Maybe there's something in God's timing in it, but it sure feels like I needed some more distance. So I don't know what it is, but it is just a magical thing that the Lord does to give us the desires of our heart, which has always been writing, but is not always in my timing, because I needed to read. I need to know Jesus. I need to know about, God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit, the great 3 in 1. And for me to do that, I did. And then I picked it back up. So
it's almost like life and learning more about yourself and going through things that then you would never have. Well, you might have had the idea for it 26 years ago, but would your writing be as rich and as strong without all the life experience?
I don't know. But however, the neat thing is, I don't think God leaves things unfinished that he wants to finish.
That's true. Even when I had the same moment too with the things I've picked up, I literally thought, when I left LA, I'm like, well, that all was of the past. I guess I need to get a job, settle down,
quit dreaming, and
live the most boring, mundane, societal expectant life.
Well, and that was what my relative was going through. Is she had done this for so long, and obviously this thing had ended. It was a work situation, had ended, and after a while, you can't imagine doing life without it, or you can't imagine doing life with it anymore. And the idea, I said something to her. I said, I know this is, you need to grieve the loss of things, but at the same time, who knows where you're going now? I said, there's got to be more. And not that, I don't think this is I hope it's not Americanized version of Christianity. There's got to be more. But I think, because we do live in the world of plenty and privilege, even in inflationary times. But I think this is the walk that we have with the Lord. There has to be more. There is more. He gives us more. He's so gracious, even to the fact that she looked like she had everything she needed. But in her heart, she knew she wanted some more, something more. There had to be more for her. And I think that may be the idea behind this, is that it may be the scarcity mentality that we're limiting God.
I was going to say exactly that. Like, I think our own limiting beliefs can confine us, where I'm starting to learn that oftentimes we have everything we need inside the whole time, but we're so convinced we don't. Or we look at other people and they're here.
Yeah.
And
I can never get there.
I can't get that. Yeah. And we realize that as we dig a little more through the ebbs and flows and pains and failures of our hearts, and just, I think, revisiting a lot of the life we've experienced, and reflecting on that actually we do have everything we need, and he actually has equipped us with everything we need. And actually it's sometimes not even average or mediocre, but it's actually way better than we expect.
It is. It really is.
Seriously.
We mentioned Wizard of Oz before, I think, but it is very much like, she wanted to go travel, and she realized she had everything, and it wasn't, I guess you could see it as, you need to settle down mentality, but it wasn't that. She realized it wasn't about the adventure. It's the people you're going on the adventure with. That was the important thing. So I guess that's kind of the heart of it.
Yeah.
Do you want to
tap our ruby red slippers?
Tap our, and just realize that God is so gracious that there will be some desires we leave this earth with, and they won't be fulfilled to heaven. We're not going to get every little desire that we want, but he's heard that we want this. And I can't imagine how the heavens and the new earth is going to supply them more than we could ever ask or imagine. So I think the deal is, I love this. It gives me hope,
And I think it's okay to give yourself grace in the process too. And I think knowing these things, or even understanding what we have to look forward to, or the whole idea of entrusting in God with our desires and our dreams. It's okay to give yourself grace to when you find yourself in moments of comparison, envy. Not saying that it's something just to get used to and to live with, but I think that recognizing it is just as important as working, maybe through it. And that's something that I still, am figuring out myself, especially in imposter syndrome, and as I'm personally redigging up desires I think he's placed in my heart. I don't know if they're mine or if they're God-given. I don't know. Sometimes I think it's maybe simultaneous.
No, but I think they're God-given, because, and the reason I feel this is that you've picked it up again. There's a reason this desire keeps coming up and keeps coming up. And not only that, you've seen relational fruit from it. You've been able to use it as an outreach, but you've also grown from it. You've been asked to do different things because of it. It's a new adventure that the Lord has given you to go on.
It has.
I mean, like when you
the very gutting one, but good.
Yes.
Did you feel that way writing? I know we're trying to tie this up, but
yeah.
I find that inspiring, and I actually didn't know that it was 26 years later.
Yes.
Did you feel like a fraud at any point?
I guess absolutely every day.
Oh my God. Every day?
Yes.
And she's a published author and is about to publish a fiction novel.
No, well,
2 books.
Well, and
used to be a magazine. What, editor?
Yes, I did.
Okay,
well, managing editor. But no, that doesn't really matter. It's the desire of the heart thing. And yeah, no, I think it is. We just keep going on and seeing where God takes us on it.
Yeah.
You know, because
being okay with the growing pains in between.
Well, and then I realized the worst thing that we could do, you could have rejected the feelings of trying this thing that you did very well when you were 18 years old. And then I could say, well, my time is over. I'm an old person now.
Yeah.
No one's publishing old people. Well, this is true. But, you know, I could have given up. And the big moral of the story is don't give up, no matter the
trying.
age. You know, no matter what you think it's silly that it might have been a childish dream. Well, maybe it wasn't.
I agree with this.
Maybe it was a God-given desire, you know?
Oh, I think it can be so hard when other people live under the societal rock and pressure and shame people. And I see a lot of that, especially creatively. Well, art doesn't make money.
Yeah.
And, well, why are you doing that? People always want this answer for it. But
they don't ask
I was talking to a friend
work.
about this who's going to be moving to Texas soon from Denton to metropolitan Texas.
Ooh.
And we were just talking about the backlash we've gotten over things and how people love a formula and a rationale behind what you're doing. I said, I don't think we can always rationale spirituality and what God is preparing in you. Sometimes I think that is something between you and him and, you know, being careful who you get wisdom from along the way.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, Paul was always, I mean, the apostles were always going where the Spirit led.
Yeah.
And I mean, it sometimes did not make sense.
When so many people want to
eyes.
ask why. Well, why? What's the purpose? What's the ultimate? Who cares?
Yeah.
But gosh, it's hard when that's, I don't know if you've experienced
we're not
that
talking about abandoning your families and, you know, doing all this kind of thing.
Right.
But there's a method in God's gloriousness that leaves you on adventure, and you don't have to leave home for it.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes
it's okay
it's your
if you
imagination.
do leave home for it. Is it okay? It is okay if you abandon everything.
Yes.
As I have twice.
So no, and I mean, but in your journeys, you have learned, and that adds up to the experience where now you're sitting in a chair doing a podcast and you're talking about the thing that you picked up.
Yeah.
Again, you know, 10 years later. 10 years later.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful thing. It's a
so
beautiful
is
life.
writing and finishing your novel.
Well, let's cheers to both of those things.
Yay!
Yay! Thank you so much. Moral Tea. Hey, I'm Renee Leonard Kennedy.
And I am Anna Gray Smith.
And we make up
Moral Tea Podcast.
Yes, we're so glad that you're listening to us, and we want to encourage you to like and subscribe at
Moral Tea Podcast on YouTube,
at pray.com,
and Instagram at Moral Tea Podcast.
Yes.
We will catch you every Monday.
Bye.
Peace.